Warning to all those who click this video. This video contains nothing but yap. Enjoy! The Beatles' Abbey Road. What is there about this album that no one has said before? To be completely honest, not that much. It is the world's most famous album of all time. By probably the world's most famous band of all time. My personal favourite band, the Beatles. You got George, Paul, Ringo and John in that order as they appear on the album cover. It's really a work of art from 1969 when this album released, and it was really the whole collection. It was the coming together of the Beatles that has passed. For the Beatles' final, not including Let It Be, their final album. And what is it about this album that makes the Beatles music so great? Why is this album? Why not an album like Rubber Soul or Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band? This is an upcoming album I will talk about because this deserves a video of its own. But what has Abbey Road got over songs like A Day in the Life or rather title track? The thing about Abbey Road is I'm always reminded of Kurt Cobain. He said something like, before he killed himself, it's better to die out in your peak than roll down to see what you'll become, or something along the lines of that. And I think, to be fair, that kind of fiery attitude is exactly what Abbey Road represents, as, well, they stopped at their best. I really respect them for that, you know? I think that's a really important part on the history of the record, as well as the history of the Beatles, and how we got to this. The Beatles started off in 1963 with their debut LP, Please Please Me. I argue quite an impressive record for the time. You have a great songs from Love Me Do to I Saw Her Standing There. But we're not talking about Please Please Me, we're talking about Abbey Road. But I feel like you need to talk about the whole discography to get to this one. This album though has incredibly famous songs that worldwide people know. Songs like George Harrison's Here Comes the Sun, George Harrison's Something, Come Together, and maybe even Ringo Starr's, his one and only, not actually one, but his most famous song, Octopus's Garden. And George, the Quiet Beatle, he did a lot on this album. He is probably the most important person in this album. In the wake of his spirituality, he made Here Comes the Sun, arguably the most famous Beatles song that people know. Maybe Paul's Blackbird or Paul's Hey Jude beats it out, but I think Here Comes the Sun, in personal experience, is the most famous Beatles song. But from Come Together to Her Majesty, what about this album is so great? I think, amazingly created, this album is easily split in two. On the vinyl, side 1 and side 2, A and B, they are two complete different sides of a coin, two halves of an album, and it sounds dumb, you know, like, of course it's half the album, what the fuck are you on about? You know, you flip it over, one half on one side, one half on the other, but it's not like that. There's a great shift you can sense between the two sides of the record. People even say, if they listen to it on streaming, damn, it sounds weird going from I Want You, She's So Heavy to Here Comes the Sun. It's a great jump. But we're not realising it's the jump between side A and side B of the vinyl. You've got side A, which is songs like Come Together, Something, Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden, and I Want You, She Is So Heavy, and then which are all together phenomenal songs. Every single one of those is an absolute best song of the time. You know, I'll wait for them down a little bit. There we go. Hopefully got some shot. Ringo Starr, the Beatles drummer, made Octopus's Garden. And it's his best song, you know? But hey, Ringo's best song. It's Ringo freaking Starr. No one cares really what he's doing. The Paul and John, McCartney and Lennon dynamic is incredibly strong in this, with songs like Come Together and songs like I Want You, She's So Heavy are incredible. Come Together, one of the most famous songs from this album, I actually think is quite overrated, but and it's the opening to this album. I don't want to get into each and every song individually, but only really the key ones. And Come Together is great to start with a really pumping bass line. I think pumping's the word, but very exciting bass line that is very iconic. And to nonsensical lyrics that who really knows what's going on in Come Together. And then I think we get to George Harrison's magnum opus, Something, one of the most beautiful love songs ever written, to this day and back in 1969. With again Paul McCartney's incredible bass line written over the top, but even George Harrison didn't want in, as he was like, it's a bit over the top, but it's incredibly beautiful and it adds so much to the song about his wife at the time. Sad that his wife dumps him for Eric Clapton, but it is what it is. And then we got some bit more like tracks. We got things like I Want You, She's Heavy, Octopus's Garden, which I've mentioned enough on this album. And then Oh Darling, yeah, I Want You, She's So Heavy. She's So Heavy. I Want You, She's So Heavy is incredibly musically, like the instrument playing is beautiful, with really 3 different lines, and it's a 7-minute song, but it's incredibly composed. Then we get side 2. The most interesting, conceptual, and really thought-provoking side of Abbey Road. From songs all the way to Here Comes the Sun, to Her Majesty. Here Comes the Sun is a beautiful song, obviously, as I said, most well-known Beatles song. But then we get to You Never Give Me Her Money and Sun King. And then we get into the real shift of the album, where instead of one song, then another song, then another song, as you expect an album to be, it's a song that flows into each other, quite like Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd or some Billie Eilish records. They flow, and it leads you with quite a narrative going on, from Mean Mr. Mustard to like she came out from the bathroom window, about this character Pam, who is a dancer and has to put up with a lot. And you're like, how does Pam do it? It really shows the resilience in this character, and it sounds like I'm in an English lesson being like, best break that down. But Pam is quite a resilient character, and up to my interpretation as well. Like, I don't actually know. People could disagree with me, but this is unimportant. But I think the character of Pam quite resonates with me because it's just, she's well hard working, you know. She works at loads of clubs a day, I can't remember a number now. And these songs are beautiful, with Paul and John's vocals absolutely saying this tenfold. And then we get songs like Nana's song, also known as Golden Slumbers, Carry That Way, The End, and Her Majesty. I think my most favourite song lyric is from this album, from The End. And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. I really stressed that a bit weird, but it's just an incredibly beautiful lyric from John there. I'm sure you've seen this cover somewhere, on a t-shirt, on a sticker, on TV. It's probably the most famous album of all time. And Paul McCartney wears no shoes on it. Do you think that means he's dead? Maybe that's just an actor. We never will really know. This album was going to be called Everest, but then they decided, fuck it, for the album cover, let's just stand outside Abbey Road where their studio is located, and they're like, yeah, and that's what they do. Music is a hard thing to talk about, and well, here I am talking about it. Following us, they write individually some of the best music that has ever come out. John Lennon's Double Fantasy, Imagine, Plastic Ono Band, Paul McCartney's Formed Wings, so you got things like Band on the Run and Ram, as well as George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. They wrote some of the best songs individually, and their skill power, their music genius, I think is 100% wholeheartedly represented on this album. And if you haven't listened to it, obviously I highly recommend giving it a listen. I think there's going to be, when I get people to listen to this album, they always go, oh, I know more of those songs than I thought I would. And that was me when I listened to this album the first time. When I listened to this album the first time, I was like, well, it's on the top of everyone's list, so it's bound to be good, right? Oh, wow, I know a lot of these songs, and that really just sat with me, you know? And you can see the complete magnum opus of the Beatles. Well, following the end, you've got songs like Her Majesty. Well, just Her Majesty. It's 25 seconds long, but is my personal favourite Beatles song of all time. But there's nothing to it. Her Majesty's a pretty nice girl, but she doesn't have a lot to say. Oh, whatever the lyric is, I don't even know. Look, this is where Abbey Road's missing from my shelf. It's empty. No! Well, I hope you enjoyed letting me talk to you about my favourite album of all time, but one of my favourite bands of all time. These four guys.